anyway.
Okay, for today.
Yeah.
Okay, so the best we can do for today.
Okay. It's 4:32. See, phones have started ringing. Yeah.
Must be some people
Yes,
who can't
Priya.
get in.
So Bindu will have quite a few of those phone calls now, I'm afraid,
Yes.
because there are 40 people who try to arrive on time. And so there's another thing that punctuality, of course, will guarantee you, which is a good place in the queue. I really hope that we can sort this out for tomorrow. I do apologize to all those of you who can't be here. Don't hear me apologizing now. I think Bindu might want to start with a verse, so maybe we'll give her a moment for doing that. So she'll be quite busy with that, I think.
Yes, people are unable to get in.
I'm so sorry. You probably have to field quite a few phone calls now.
Yeah, no.
So do you just want to start us off with the verse, and then I think I can take over.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just send an email to everyone to inform them that only 100 were able to get in, and the rest.
Yeah. I'll do that in some time. Okay. We start with the verse. Imbue thyself with the power of imagination. Have courage for the truth. Sharpen thy feelings for responsibility of the soul. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you are. It gives us at Inode great pleasure to organize this course on form drawing with 4 sessions, today and tomorrow, and then next week, 9th and 10th. So please note, because some people miss it otherwise. Today we have once again, for yet another interesting subject, form drawing, we have Sven Saar, whose popularity is growing, I suppose. So Sven Saar has been a class teacher for 30 years in UK and Germany. He is now active in teaching education and development in both countries. He runs in-service days and mentoring teacher trainings. Presently, he is conducting a foundation course in Waldorf education from England. He has developed and run several staff development and mentoring programs. He contributes to the courses in Stuttgart Institute. He is an active mentor and advisor. He is the initiator of inspiring professional practices in Steiner Waldorf schools. I have been very fortunate to have heard Sven in Dornach, and then we have interacted, and I'm so grateful to Sven and to the higher powers for giving us this opportunity to organize such wonderful sessions. Over to Sven.
Thank you so much, Bindu, for your kind words. And I must admit that I feel quite humbled at being in the presence of so many of you, and that you've given up your free time to be here and join me in this. And I hope that these sessions we're going to have together will not involve you having to take notes and listen to any kind of words of wisdom too much, because it's form drawing. It's supposed to be a doing thing. So maybe unlike the history sessions, if you went to those were more in the form of lectures. I really see this much more as a kind of workshop. And as Bindu said, nobody, I think, would not relate to understanding the straight line and the curve, or what the difference is between the two. And I don't know any alphabet in the world or any art in the world that doesn't relate to those two archetypal forms. And yet there is something really quite unique in giving them this kind of prominence in our work. And hopefully after the 4 sessions that we're going to do together, you will each have not just an outer understanding, but an inner picture of why we do this and what it involves. Just before we get into it, I'd like to suggest something practical for you. So you've all had some preparatory notes about having some paper and some crayons and some string and maybe some beads or raisins or something like that. So that's all sorted. But what I want to suggest to you is something more technological than that. And this is that how do we share the results of our work together? How do you show other people what you have drawn in these 4 sessions? Rather than, when you hold things up in the camera, it's always a bit wobbly and it never quite works properly. And this is, I'll tell you what, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is the button called Participants. If you click on that and find your name, and click on your name, you'll be able to see a function that is called Edit Profile Picture. Now, if at some point today, after our session, you take a picture of the drawing that you liked best and you upload it to your computer, then you can make it your profile picture for tomorrow's meeting. So instead of seeing lots of black squares with people's name on, when everybody turns off their camera, because I'll say that at the beginning, now everybody turn off your cameras, we'll be able to see everybody's favorite drawing, okay? And then we can do the same thing tomorrow. And so at least we see 4 drawings that you've chosen of yourself. And of course, you can adapt that and change that whichever way you like. So just use that. And then we have a bit of an exchange, because it's rather a shame to have a workshop with so many people and not be able to really enter into conversation. If I ask you questions, please forgive me that that most of them will be rhetorical questions. In a real life setting, of course, there would be a call and response, and that will only be possible to a very limited degree with so many of you. So anyway, that's enough of the technical stuff. So thank you, and thank you for being here. And sorry, I've taken a bit of time for the technicalities. So to begin with, let's look a little bit at the state of soul of the modern young child. I'm now not speaking about kindergarten children, but young school children, the 6 or 7-year-olds. Many of you who've been witnesses or who've been participants in the history and geography courses that I've given will remember that I did this movement in both courses. And that was like the educational process that is happening here, where the thing that is generic, genetic, hereditary, cultural, meets the thing that is unique, spiritual, personal, the individual, and the result is a harmonious union of what is me and what is us, if you like. And just like everything else, every educational experience, form drawing also plays its part in making that happen in a harmonious fashion, in a harmonious way. And I find that particularly today, children who try to find a sustained connection to the world are met with so much world, aren't they? There is so much more world than there would have been 200 or 500 or 1,000 years ago. The images, the sounds, the impressions, the number of people. How do you select out of that what is good for you, what is healthy, what is harmonious for you? It's not hard to understand why in this climate, for whatever it is, and I'm not somebody who keeps saying how much nicer it was in the olden days, but in this climate, it's becoming really a big challenge for children to find peace, to look at something small, to let the rest of the world be and concentrate on one thing, just for a little bit, and come down to the page, to the hand, to the finger, to the color. So this is something that form drawing definitely allows us to do. There's a real therapeutic power in simple archetypal images. I don't need to be at any kind of meta level. I don't need to understand what I'm doing. I'm just doing. So for the sake of this course, and this applies to all of us, but it certainly applies to the child, drawing is a verb, not a noun. You're all familiar with drawing as a noun. Oh, what a lovely drawing. Can we hang it on the wall? I hope that we're not really going to be producing any of those, although many of the things that you will be producing will be pretty, beautiful, amazing even. But you see, let's try and draw like children, shall we? Because you know what children do when they've done a really beautiful drawing? They give it away, don't they? Mum, I want you to have that. Teacher, I want you to have that. This is for so-and-so. This is for so-and-so. Why? Because children shed pictures like a snake sheds its skin. When they draw, they are the drawing. And when they've done the drawing, when they've finished what they do, any drawing, not just forms, then it's time for the next thing. It's finished. It's done with. Most children will not really plaster their walls with pictures that they've done because they're a process that is now finished. And I would very much encourage us to do a similar thing. So what we're going to do today and in the next 3 days, actually, 4 sessions, will hopefully not to create a beautiful book. In fact, I discourage the use of form drawing books wherever I go, and in favor of loose sheets of paper or chalkboards or something like that, so that we really underline it's a process that we're going into. We're not going to create amazing works of art to hang up and sell. Although, of course, there's no law against doing that if that's what you want to do as well. So the first thing I'd like you to do now is to embrace the straight line with me. I'm not going to lecture you too much on the didactics of it. I'll only make references to how we would do things with children here and there, because I'd like you to feel what forms do. If I could give you a talk of half an hour or so about psychological, physiological benefits of form drawing for children, but it's much more powerful if you experience that yourself. So if I take you through the experience and then you inwardly translate it to the child's situation, you will get a much deeper understanding of what we're trying to do. Okay, so first thing I'd like you to do, if you possibly can, where you are, is to stand on both your feet. And if you can't stand, then try and sit straight and pretend you have no legs or something like that, so that you can really feel a verticality, an uprightness. And of course, you know, I'm trying not to patronize you with this. Of course, you know how to stand straight, but that's not the point. It's not training or coaching or anything like that. But just to be properly balanced between your left and your right foot, and to draw your attention to your spine. So first of all, just that line that goes from the lower end of your back to the upper end of your back, that very pronounced line that is there. And of course, if we draw a line on a piece of paper, it's a bit like our spine. It has a beginning and an end, because the paper has a beginning and an end. But can you now try and extend that line that ends in your coccyx, in the bottom of your spine, downwards? Just continue it between your legs until it hits the ground. And then now follow it back up through your spine, through the back of your skull, until it hits the ceiling. So now there's a thread going from the ceiling to the floor, and you are part of it. You are part of that line, that light, that thread that starts at the ceiling, goes all the way down your spine, goes down between your legs and touches the floor there. Now try and extend it further. Allow the thread to move down through the floor of your house, through into the ground, and in the same direction upwards and away above the roof of your house and high up. And you suddenly begin to realize that there is no organic end to this process. That straight line will go on forever and ever. And if you have some knowledge of projective geometry, then you will know that that is only a theoretical concept, because at some point it will begin to curve and return back on itself, but we are far too small to have a clear image of the vastness of that circle, that imaginary circle. Okay, so just come back, drop your concentration for a moment, step out of that for a moment, and be a little bit like this. And now we're going to do the same thing in the other direction. So we lift our arms to the left and the right. And this time, because we know what we're going to be doing, it won't take us quite so long. So we'll start at one of our middle fingers, and we feel that line that goes right through our chest, out the other arm to the other middle finger. Go to and fro a few times, and then extend to the left wall, extend to the right wall. Extend beyond the wall to the room next door where my grandson is sitting at the moment in front of his computer doing his online lessons. Or to the other side, where there's the conservatory of our house, and then the neighbor's house, and then a filling station, and so on. And we find that that horizontal line that will hug now, parallel the surface of the earth. To my right, all the way to the sea. To my left, all the way to the sea, because I'm on an island. And then it continues, of course. So thank you for that. We have these two straight directions. And of course, there is another one which is much harder to compare to, which is the one that goes through it front and back. So I'll just take that one as an assumption right now. And you can please feel free to sit down again, having experienced that, because I want to demonstrate something to you now. So the first thing I'm going to show you that has very much to do with how I would begin this in class 1. And it has to do with modeling what we do to the children. So make sure you can see me from where you are. I'm not going to talk to you like 6-year-olds, so I won't pretend you're class 1, but I still want you to see exactly what it is I'm doing. Okay, so I have my surface here. I have the crayon in my hand. So in a smaller seminar, I would now invite you to speculate on what it is that I wanted you to see, what it is that I've just been doing here. So I have to sort of assume that this inner monologue happens to you in your head right now. I hope you saw that I did not just turn this way and draw a straight line. I hope you saw that I went here and I breathed out. And I found the place where I wanted to start. And from that moment onwards, I became the line. All the way at the bottom. I did it slowly, deliberately, and I finished. And when it was finished, I took my hand off again. Many of you familiar with Waldorf education will know that this is the first lesson we teach the children. And here is an important opportunity for us to model something. And if you know anything about Zen, you will understand what I'm talking about. We model to the children that nothing we do in a careless or slapdash kind of way. Look, children, what I can do. Here's a straight line. No. I take time. It's something that I, as a teacher, can do well. It's simple for me. And yet I still take care. I do it slowly and deliberately, and I don't speed up. And only when I'm done do I take my chalk off, and then it's done. Yeah. So this modeling to the children, this inner care that I take to this is really important, much more important than whether that line is straight or not. And you will find that I will demonstrate many things to you, of course, in the course of these sessions, and you will find that what I do for you is often not very pretty, but that's not the point. And it's also an important message to the children. By not trying to be super perfect, I model to them that it's not about the result, but the process that takes us there. You see, I could, if I was nervous about this, for example, drawing a circle in front of the children on the blackboard, I could go in the night before, couldn't I? And draw the best circle and maybe spend a whole hour and getting it better and better and better. And then the next day I go into the classroom and I open the blackboard and say, look, children, what I've done. But they've not seen me do it. And the best result I can hope for if I do it like that is that they go, oh, teacher, you're so amazing. And what do they learn from that? Yeah. So be careful not to feed your ego with showing how amazing you are at this kind of thing. Yeah. So what I'd like you to do now is exactly that. And maybe some of you have already done that while I'm talking. So take your time on that piece of paper in front of you, from the top to the bottom. First, just that direction, from the top to the bottom, draw a line and try and become that line. I'll shut up now for 30 seconds. You know how people say that when you relate to each other on Zoom, you don't get feedback, that digital communication doesn't really work. I've just had a strong impression that that is not actually true, because I felt the cholerics among you go, oh, come on, what's the next thing? Yeah, what are we going to do next? This is so slow. Yeah, and of course your choleric children will have exactly that kind of reaction to it. But just hold it, be strong. You know, allow this to happen. Don't worry, we'll do lots of exciting things as well. But there is a real benefit to going a little bit slowly at the beginning. So the temptation would be, and this is a didactic thing now, is to have drawn that straight line on the blackboard and then say to the children, just like Steiner suggests in the first teacher's course, now who of you would like to have a go? And imagine what would happen now if the child, the most choleric child, I'll have a go, and they take the chalk and they go to the blackboard and your line is already there. And then they stand there and they draw another line next to it. Have they experienced their inner uprightness if they do it like that? Or have they just copied your line? Be very careful what you want them to do with this, what you want them to experience with this. If they just draw a perfect parallel next to your first line, all they've demonstrated is how good they are at imitating you. But they're no longer kindergarten children. You don't want them to imitate you. We use imitation for another year or two in foreign language lessons, for example, because it's still a capacity that they have. But also we want to emancipate them from imitating us. We want them to have an inner experience of uprightness. And that, I'm afraid, they will only have when the blackboard's empty. So your line has been drawn on. You give the child not the chalk. You give the child a cloth and you say, can you wipe my line away, please? And then they draw their own line. And then you praise them for that. And then you hold up the cloth, not the chalk, and you say, who would like to go next? And then the next child comes and takes the cloth and wipes away the line that the first child has done, and they draw their line. And you see, we've just modeled something else. Yeah, what I've just created is not permanent, has no relevance beyond my doing it. And I won't get upset if somebody else wipes it away, because we all do it like that to each other. It's not mean. It's not disrespectful. It's okay to say, that's gone, now let's do the next thing. This first Waldorf lesson is about so much more than the straight line. You begin to see that, don't you? Yeah, the way I deliberately show them something. And then this next thing, and I'm going to stop being didactic soon and just let you draw a little bit. But one more thing I want to do with you now is I'm going to draw 2 lines on the board now. And I would like you, dear class 1, to start like I did and then continue in whatever direction you choose to continue. What happens next? So you do that now. You take it, whichever way you want it to go. Maybe give you just another 30 seconds or so. We're going to move quite quickly through this. And then when you've done, I'm just going to look at the gallery view so I can see more of you. When you've done, maybe you could just hold your picture up to the camera and show everybody else. How did you continue the drawing? And have a look what everybody else did. Okay. So we have quite a few that are getting smaller in one direction. We have some that are getting bigger to the side. Good. So you can see there's a bit of variety now, isn't there? Yes, and I see some right angles. That's what I was hoping for. And I can see some that are changing. And yes, very good. Now comes the variety. This is what I was hoping for, you see. Thank you for that. Because the thing that you've probably seen in your training or on blackboards is that it now gets smaller and then it gets bigger again in that direction, and it's lovely and symmetrical. And if I do that on the blackboard and then tell the children to copy that, then again, they're copying, they're not experiencing. And if they now choose to do this, have they done anything wrong? No, not really. They have explored the concept of the straight line, just like I want them to do, but they've done it out of their own imagination. Don't forget, it's their education, not my education that we're talking about here. Yeah, this is their work, not my work. And if they choose to do it like this, if I give them that kind of freedom, then that is something that I find absolutely delightful, of course. So just turn your paper around. You're going to need quite a lot of paper today, well, most days actually. And let's have a look at what happens if we start with this line. and nothing else. What would you like to do to this line? Now we're still only doing straights at the moment. What would you like to happen next? Maybe I give you a little bit of an incentive by doing that, putting that line here. There. I'll try and go a little bit closer to it and see it better like this. So you're going horizontal now. So I might do something like this. But again, the point is not that you copy me. The point is that you experience horizontal. For me, as a right-hander, left to right feels good. I wonder what right to left feels like. Oh, that's wonky. That's not straight. I find it harder to be parallel when I'm going right to left. That's interesting. Now I'm learning something about the way I draw. You see, I'm learning something about my hand-eye coordination here. So my teacher might have to encourage me also to try things out that don't come naturally. So if it comes naturally for me to go from left to right, I might need my teacher to say, no, try it the other way around and see what happens. And doesn't mean that I'm no longer allowed to do what is natural, but if I've never tried it, I won't know what happened. So in my case, for example, if I draw from right to left, my line goes upwards. It's no longer parallel. I've learned something about myself. What happens if I draw from the bottom to the top, rather than from the top to the bottom? So let's move to the next thing. By the way, if you have, I hope you have paper that's big enough for you to really experience the movement that is involved in all this. In a little while, you're probably also going to see how much movement is actually involved in this. So what I'd like you to do first, before we do any kind of drawing, is to take one of the strings that you've brought. And just place it in front of you. And can you now manipulate that string so that it makes a circle in front of you? And as you go through this, you'll notice something. If you now look down at the creation that you've just made, you realize it's not perfect. And an interesting question to ask yourself, and I'm not proposing that you do this to class 1, but to yourself just now, is how come you know that it's not perfect? So just to illustrate what I mean by that, I know that I have to do a little bit like this, and I have to go a little bit like that to make it better. But now I have to correct here a little bit, and I have to correct there a little bit. And I keep correcting because I realize, oh, this isn't perfect. And the reason that I can do that, the reason that I can see my circle isn't perfect, is because I have a perfect circle inside of me. And every child has that perfect circle inside of them. So you might think, oh, well, drawing a circle, that's quite an advanced thing to be able to do. Well, nobody actually can draw a proper circle. Everybody's circle is just an approximation, but everybody also knows that it's not a proper circle because we understand circleness, because inside ourselves, our circle is perfect. Just to illustrate that a little bit, if my circle now looks like this, you can even look at my circle and you can see that. You know exactly what I need to do. And you all know that if I do this, it's not going to give me the right the right result. You all know it's got to go out and it's got to go out. And then you can say, you can be my teacher and say, yeah, a little bit here. And from the bottom, you need to close that. It's because you have an inner circle. Okay. So don't aim for perfection. Perfection is what's inside. Here we're on the earth. Here it's not about perfection. Here it's about the journey towards that. Okay, so a curve. And that's quite a different dynamic from that very deliberate, very Apollinian straight line. Now I'm drawing a curve, and I'm enjoying it actually much more than the straight line, to be honest. So I'm going to go backwards the same way. Yay. Oh, this was good. I'm going to do this again. And please join me in drawing a curved line, and just realize that actually, maybe you are not like that, but I'm having a lot more fun with this one. It's not quite as pretty as the straight line. People won't look at me and go, oh, wow, you're good at drawing curves. But I'm also I'm enjoying the dynamic of this. This is good. I want to go to and fro. And if you now saw my upper body, you would realize, well, in fact, I can show you this, can't I? I'm just going to swap my camera around a little bit. You see, this is what my upper body looks like when I'm drawing a curve. I'm going like this, because all of me is involved in this. It just in the way that all of me was involved in the straight line. Now I'm all involved in here. And I don't really want to stop at the open bit, do I? I really want to go round and round. And why shouldn't I? You know, it's a good thing to go round and round. So let's go back to this particular form. What I'd like you to do now is, on your new page, is to draw a curved line that is open to the bottom like that. And that then turns in on itself and comes back to where it was, like this. And you find that this curved line has no beginning and no end. It just goes on and on and on. And it doesn't have to be particularly pretty, but just see what happens to your upper body when you draw this. And in a way, the bigger you can do this, the more you can experience that. Oh, yes. Dynamic is happening. There are slower bits and there are faster bits. And just keep going round and round. Change direction if you like. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes for doing this now, without me talking. Okay, so let's just come back together for a moment. I'm just going to remove the spotlight so I can see you all again, and change my camera as well. So the drawing that you just did, you've probably all still got it in front of you. Now picture yourself with your class or with a group of children, and you're going to say, okay, now we're going to go outside now, and we're going to run this form in the playground. What do we need to make sure that we know where to go? And somebody might say, oh, well, we need two places. We need two children to stand in certain places so we know what to run round. So maybe we'll need one person to stand here and one person to stand here. And maybe we'll need one person to stand here as well. And then we can all start running, and we run this way and then tight round the corner, and we've got a lovely long way to run and tight around another corner. Oh, and this is another corner. And of course, when that happens and there's 20 or 30 of us, then we'll be strung out all along this, and we'll have this wonderfully flowing river, and the whole class is going to be in movement. And this is going to take us ages and ages and ages before anybody wants to stop, because this is so much fun to run and run and run and run and run. And if we have these three little anchor points, which can be cones, or it can be children that might not feel like running that day because they're tired or they've got a tummy ache or whatever it is, then we really experience this in a big way, in a macrocosmic way, if you like, not just the micro way in front of us. Because to some extent, what I haven't really talked about yet is that from a didactic point of view, this movement that I do here, and where I said, and I look at my upper body, that's of course already quite reduced from how big I could make it. I can of course also draw a straight line just in the air like that. I can make big curves with my arms and do it this way around and really feel how good it is. But it really only comes home when it leaves a trace, I find. And you can do that in the sand, and you can do that with chalk, and you can do that with a whole class with children in the playground. And then maybe once we've done that for the first time, the next day you could say, I wonder if one of you can invent a form that the class can run. So you give them that for homework. And it's only their second day in class 1, and they're all excited because they're already getting homework. I've got to invent a form that we can all run together. And then they have to explain to the class what they need. So, you know, which are the cones or the people, which are the marker posts. And everybody's getting really excited. It's only the third day of school, and already the teachers stopped teaching and handed it over to the pupils. What are your ideas? And not only do I have to run in the right direction, I also have to have an inner picture in my head of what the form looks like. And if I'm one of the people who has come to the earth, and we have many of those, I'm sure in India it's the same, or in Hong Kong or Australia or Taiwan or Thailand, it's the same as it is here. We have many children coming into class 1 who don't really want to listen to the teacher, who don't really want the teacher to be the person giving all the commands. There's a beautiful book about the kindergarten class 1 transition, which is called You're Not the Boss of Me. And that describes quite accurately the attitude that at least a quarter of your children will have to your relationship to them. So you need to earn their respect first. And one way of doing that is to recognize the leaders, because that's what they are in your class, and say, okay, you do it. Show us. You invent a form, and then tomorrow you teach it to us. And then we'll all run it. And maybe if it's a really nice one, we can draw it as well in our books. Don't feel that you are the font of all wisdom. That's old thinking. That's not, I find that's not appropriate for the modern so-called consciousness soul age anymore. We are not sages as teachers. We are not gurus. We are guides for development. And we enable a space. We create an environment in which the children can thrive. So that is our job. And we give impulses But the form I've just done with you, that's an impulse. Yeah. And then that has hopefully created already a momentum on which the children then can develop their own ideas. So I'm going to go back to the other camera, and I'm going to spotlight myself again so that you see again what I'm doing, because sometimes, of course, I don't want you to get the impression that the children can take over, because of course there are certain things, you know where you want to go with that. You know what the learning outcomes are. And at some point you need to say, okay, we've done this now for long enough. Now comes the next thing. And I'm going to skip various steps now. And the next thing I've decided is going to be symmetry. So I'm going to start by drawing a curved form like this. And that curved form is going into this direction as well. And then it's going to go in this direction. And then it's going to go in this direction and come back to itself, like this. So once you've got it, once you can see it, feel free to join me. And you will find that if you do this on day 5 or 6 of your class 1, that this is probably going to be the first time that you're bringing something to the children, which some of them will find really difficult to do. And if you've managed to create a good emotional atmosphere for that sort of thing, then it won't make anyone cry. It also helps if yours isn't perfect, but if you're clearly enjoying this, and you find that some children, the noisy ones, they're going to go because they've got a little Formula One car going around the corners. And you've got other children very quietly, not making any noise, but you can see their tongue, the tip of their tongue is coming out between their lips, because they really want to get this so right, don't they? They want to get this so right. And when you've gone round maybe 10 or 20 times or something like that, and you've really got it, then you can say to the class, now, any of you who want to are now allowed to change color and follow it around the outside and see what happens. So don't be too strict with making it pure and dogmatic about, oh, this is all about form, it's not about color. It's not really true. So let's have some of this as well. And maybe go the other way as well. And you can see what we're doing here is we're not creating a perfect work of art, but we're enjoying the process, and we're becoming the yellow, and we're becoming the blue, and we're becoming the symmetry in this kind of way. In these sessions, I'm always at some point going to stop for 5 to 7 minutes and allow you to explore by yourself a little bit. And this is the moment where we've reached that. So before we come to the next thing, which I want to share with you, I'm going to actually stop teaching. And by now you've done 5 or 6 drawings. And I'd like you now to give you your own individual space to go over whichever you felt you wanted to relate to a little more. Because we sometimes need to do that in the classroom as well, because we're so full of good ideas, don't we? And we don't often give the children the time to say, oh, I want to practice that one again. I want to do this one once more. I wish the teacher would give me time to do that. So I'm now giving you that time. Of the 6 or 7 drawings that we've done, which one would you like to do again? Or which one would you like to modify, metamorphose, and explore a little bit? So I'll also pause the recording at this point, and in 5 minutes or so, I'm going to pick it up again. But I'm not going away. So I'm sorry to interrupt you in your endeavors. To some extent, you might just want to go on and on now, and that's fine. I'd like to do something with you now, which you will probably enjoy even more. So you need another piece of paper in front of you, which is as large as you can make it. And I wonder if that actually works, that you don't watch me first, but you sort of do it following me, or immediately after me, once you got the idea, and really at your own kind of speed and all that. We're going to draw a spiral. And what I'd like you to do is to observe what happens in you as you draw, what it does to you to draw this spiral. Yeah. So what's your emotional, energetic, chi kind of response to this activity? So we begin in the center of our picture, and we start fairly small. It's quite a tight spiral, so we can go around lots and lots of times. And you just keep going until you run out of space on the paper. Sorry about the light reflexes on this. Sometimes the camera isn't quite doing what I would like it to do. Okay, so you've done that. But when you've done that, change the paper or turn it over. And now we're going to draw another spiral, but we're going to start on the outside, at the outside of the paper, and we're going to work our way in. And again, as you do that, observe your inner response to the process. Same sort of thing. Try and go around as many times as you can. So a relatively tight sort of spiral. You will probably find that, as such, the spirals are not particularly distinguishable if you now hold them up next to each other. Maybe one is a bit straighter than the other one, but if you now show this to someone else in your house and you say, can you tell me the starting point for each of these spirals? They would not be able to tell, would they? Because they look fairly indistinguishable from each other. But you will have had a different relationship to the form. And this is kind of to underline what I said at the beginning of the session, that it's all about the process and not about the result of it. Because in each case, you end up with a blue spiral, in my case. But I've experienced different things in doing so. And form drawing, you see, is not really a subject. It's not really about learning a particular skill. Of course, we're learning about symmetry and hand-to-eye coordination and all that kind of thing. That is by the by. But actually, if I'm honest with it, my main motivation for doing it is a therapeutic one rather than a pedagogical one. So certain movements that the children's hands on the page, the children's feet in the playground, the children's arms in the air are going to perform will have effects on their integration of body and soul and spirit. And let's say I have a class that has seen a dead bird in the playground. Yeah, so they've come in from break, and there was a dead bird there, and some boys saw it first and told everybody about it, and then some of the shyer children also came and wanted to have a look, and then one of the boys picked up the dead bird and threw it at someone else, and that person started crying, and then one or two of the followers of that particular leader thought they had to prove that they're brave as well, so they started throwing that dead bird about, and some children were really upset by this and really wanted this to stop, and other boys wanted to show that they're even cooler and started throwing it at bigger children, and then it ended up in a fight in the playground. So this has happened in your class 1, and now the children, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, the children are come running in, and they're really excited and really upset and full of energy and anger and tears and pride and all sorts of things. And they bring all these emotions with them because they don't really know what to do with those emotions. And your next lesson is German or maths or Russian or whatever it is. And you want to teach them something now, but they're in no place for you to be able to do that. And the conventional thing to do at this point would be to say, class 1, be quiet. Everybody sit down, feet on the ground, hands on the desk. And you may, if they're frightened enough of you, you may succeed in making them quiet. But actually, on the inside, it's going to go on. That whole energy from the break time is still there, it's still going. And if you've shut your class up because you now want to teach them handwork or whatever it is, and you've squashed it down like that, within minutes, you're going to have the first children complaining about tummy aches. Within minutes, you're going to have the first children being cheeky towards you, of needing to find some kind of inappropriate outlet for that energy. So the wise thing to do is to recognize that energy when it comes and to pick it up in some form. And that is, of course, what you can do with form drawing, you see. So just forget about handwork for a moment or Russian and say, okay, everybody get your form drawing papers out. This is what we're going to do now. And you very calmly do a big spiral that starts on the outside and goes in. And you might even tell them a little story about that careful labyrinth that you're doing here, although we're not really representational in this. And we want to be very sure that the little gnome can go through all the passages. And if any lines touch each other, the little gnome will get stuck. So we have to be very careful that the lines don't touch each other all the way until we can't get any smaller. Yeah? And then the children have arrived. And they've been able to take that energy, that physical, emotional energy, and do something with it, and you've brought it back here. Yeah. You can do the same thing the other way around, of course. If you've just told a very sad story, for example, a melancholic sort of story, or maybe a story that isn't even quite finished yet, and the children really have gone deep in there with you. St. Francis, for example, that sort of story in class 2. And it's now really time to break the spell, if you like, and have snack. You're not really doing the children a favor by going, okay, break time. That's not how we break a spell, Maybe when you start telling the story, already have the papers there on their desks. And then you say, now you take your crayon. And now we're going to do a spiral. And we begin at the center. And we're going out, and we're going out, and we're going out, and we're going, building up energy. Now we're back in the social realm. We've started in our own moved, image-rich, image-laden soul, and we're letting go, and we're letting go, and we're letting go until we're out there again. Yeah, that's therapy. That's therapy that doesn't wear its name proudly on its sleeve, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to do something very enjoyable with you now. We're going to do one of my favorite forms. And it's not quite a spiral, but you'll see in a minute what we're going to do. And I wonder if we can manage now to do something quite different, something we haven't done today yet, which is non-verbal instruction. So class 1, you might be at this stage. I will not explain to you what we're doing, and you don't have to wait till I'm finished. You've all got your materials in front of you. Watch what I do. And when you think you get it, you're allowed to start. So you don't have to wait for me to tell you when to start. When you think you've got an idea what I'm doing, you're allowed to start as well. So I'm going to start now. Sorry, my paper keeps moving. And of course, you can stop watching me now if you get it and do exactly that. Just start your own. And when you're finished, use your own imagination and start another one. This time just now, you were probably doing more or less what I did, a form that opened to the bottom towards you. Maybe try one that opens towards the top or to the side. Maybe try one that has a different shape. I'm trying to gauge, quite unsuccessfully, I have to say, where you are with this. If I sort of look at you on the screen, most of you seem still to be engaged in the act of drawing. Maybe if you've done, do you want to hold up what you've done? That would be nice to share it. Oh, yes. Oh, look, I can see some variety as well. Yes, beautiful. So some people who've also gone with corners as well as with curves or with wobbly lines. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. You see this process of doodling, you know, while you're on the phone or when you're doing something, you know, and somebody's telling you something that you're not that interested in. Once you've done a form drawing course, doodling just becomes a completely different thing. And what I've just shared with you is only halfway through that first form drawing block in class 1. You're maybe 2.5 weeks into class 1. And we've already done a form that is probably one of my favorite forms to do, just because it gets me into such a harmonious space. It's slightly more involved than a spiral. And of course, it still has that spiral quality to it. But let's not forget our old friend from the beginning of the lesson, the straight line. Okay, so on this picture now, I'm going to do two drawings to save a bit of paper, and also because I think when I do it this large, my paper keeps moving. So the first thing I'm going to do is to draw a spiral again from the outside to the inside, but this one's going to be a slightly different spiral. Have a look at this. And I wonder, just like we did with the last form, dear children, once you get what I'm doing, you don't have to wait for me to stop. You can pick that up straight away. And most of you will be there or thereabouts with this form now. I remember vividly the last time I did this, the last time I had a class 1 is now about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And one of the children came to me, didn't put up their hand, but came to me at break time and said, "Mr. Saar, did you see the secret straight line?" And I said, "Oh, you have to tell me about the secret straight line. Where's the secret straight line?" And she said, "Can I show you?" And then she brought me her book, or I think it was a book, and she said, "Can't you see it?" And I said, "Well, I can see lots of straight lines, but where's the secret one?" And she says, "Look here." How all the corners line up. And then a really interesting thing happened. After she did that, I said, "Oh yeah, and have you seen the other one?" And she said, "What other one?" And I said, "Well, look at here." And she went, "Oh, isn't that amazing?" Yeah, that really shows you what children are like. Yeah. So she'd been so delighted about seeing these line up. She never thought, she wasn't at that meta point yet. A 10-year-old would immediately see the pattern in this, but a 6-year-old is just so delighted with having made this discovery that this discovery is a wonderful revelation to her. And oh, I tell you, it's the most wonderful thing in the world to be a teacher. If you can share moments like that with children. Okay, now we're going to do something that we don't find in nature. And really interestingly, lots of children find this one incredibly difficult. Have a go at the triangle, and feel free to decide whether you want to go from the outside in or from the inside out. Okay, so one thing I haven't really mentioned yet is this question of representation. Normally when we do a drawing, we are quite keen to say what it is. Yeah, so you draw a straight line with a bit of a bubble at the top, and you immediately go, if you now say, children, what is this? They'll probably go, oh, it's a tree. No, it's a person. And there is always a temptation, because Steiner says that we should work out of the image, to keep doing that all the time, which is why people find it very difficult, for example, to teach maths without the use of little characters, you know, Princess Giveaway and Mr. Multiple Times, or whatever you want to call them. So this idea of using imagery to get a point across is, of course, something that we're quite familiar with. But don't be frightened of the pure thing either. Form drawing was invented by Steiner at a time when art in general was going in this direction. You will, many or most of you, probably all of you, will be familiar with an artist called Wassily Kandinsky, who was a Russian artist working in Central Europe at the same time as Steiner. And the two of them knew each other. And Kandinsky famously wrote an essay about the spiritual in art. And he, of course, if you can picture his pictures inwardly, was a representation, was a representative of the non-representative art. So his lines are lines, his shapes are shapes, and nothing else. So it's not like Paul Klee, where the circle forms a head or a nose or an eye, or Picasso or Miro. But in Kandinsky, it's really about the form in itself. And in a sense, that's what we're celebrating in form drawing as well. The form in itself. There's nothing wrong with being playful, which is where my raisins are coming in, or maybe in your case, your beads or something like that. So I said earlier on, I've got, these are two little helpers, and these are my images for the children. So we have Rohini and Ramesh Raisin. And so Rohini Raisin is going to help us first, and I'm just going to empty her out like that and spread my raisins about a little bit like this. And now, of course, they can inspire me to do something. So, for example, I could say to the children, now, children, we're going to draw a loop around every one of those raisins, but I don't want, apart from the loops, any of the lines to cross each other. So this might look something like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And at the beginning, that's quite simple. And then we come to, we've painted ourselves into a corner. Now we have to look, where do we go next? And how do we manage that the lines don't cross each other or interfere with each other? Oh yes, I'm going to make it. And now I have to go all the way around here to link up again with my first line. And then I've done that. And now Rohini can pick up her raisins again. And I've created a lovely loopy sort of form. Have a go at that, each of you. Just in case you think that we're only doing easy things because there are only 6, well, this is not that easy, is it? And again, the tip of the tongue comes out between the teeth here. Even with you. So having put your beads away again, sort of removed them, what does your picture look like? Do you just want to hold it up? I hope you can also do what I do when I just, although I'm spotlighted, if I click gallery view in the top right, then I can see everybody else's. Oh, that's brilliant. Isn't that fun? Very nice. You can probably guess what comes next, can't you? Given that this is straight line and curve. Thank you. We're now going to turn our paper around so that we have a fresh canvas. And I don't mind whether I use Rohini or Ramesh. Let's use Ramesh instead. And I'm going to spread my beads around a little bit more. Now, this time, remember, children, what we did yesterday with the crazy loops all around the raisins, all around our beads? Now, we're going to try and do the same thing, but you're not allowed to use curved lines. All the lines you draw must be straight lines. And they still can't cross each other, only in front of the raisin. So oh, going the wrong way. I've got to make extra corners. Because if I go to the outside, I have to make an extra corner to get myself back in. Oh, I can also do triangles. Doesn't always have to be curves. I've just oh, on the outside again. Let's go down this way. And this way. And I think, oh no, forgotten one. Got to go around here to not cross my line. And come out again. Not touch another line and get back there. And when I've done that, I collect my raisins again. It's harder, isn't it? So I don't know what your plans are for this evening. But if you now look at what you've just done, especially the one where you've done all straight lines, I don't know if this is how Kandinsky worked, but you could now take some colored pencils and start putting different colors into those lines or outside of those lines and have a look what comes out of it. And before you know it, all you have to do is write Kandinsky at the bottom and fool all of your friends that you've got a real one on your wall. Because this is what we do. We play with line and shape and form. This is what the Impressionists, the French Impressionists, called l'art pour l'art. Art for its own sake. Art for the sake of art. You and I are using it for a pedagogical purpose because we do amazing things for hand-eye coordination with this, of course. You know, the planning involved in not crossing more than once is really quite extraordinary. So you can be, I think you can be very chuffed with yourself, very pleased with yourself if at the end of this main lesson block, you've managed to do something like this. So I'm going to remove my spotlight here and go back into my gallery view so that I can see at least most of you, and of course not all of you. So I hope you've enjoyed this little introduction into playfulness. This was all very much class 1 related. It won't be quite so strictly class related with our sessions. There may well be one or two amongst you who think, oh, this is just too childlike for me. I want to do some proper drawing. After all, I'm a grown-up. And I'll say, okay, be a little bit patient. At the very latest, next week, we'll be doing something that will really tax you. And at the end of it, each of you will be able to draw a 12-pointed star freehand, I promise. Yeah. So this is a journey worth going on. And I hope you enjoy the easy, playful part at the beginning as much as you do the geometric challenges at the end. So I'll hand over back to Bindu at this point. My suggestion will be, because we've let down 40 people who can't be here, I'm going to, as soon as I can, send the recording of this by email to Bindu, and maybe you can then immediately pass it on just to everybody.
To everybody.
That makes it easier for you, and then you have a recording of this anyway.
Yeah.
And I hope that I do my best that we can sort out the problem. My administrator has just sent me the bill to say that we have definitely done this. So it's at the Zoom end where the problem happened.
Yeah.
I just have to investigate and see. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sven. Over to Sheshadri for the closing words. Sheshadri, please.
Okay. I strive to learn to give my heart to all I see. I see that I, with heart aflame with love, can light the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheshadri. Now I suppose we can all switch on our cameras and unmute and say bye, and we meet tomorrow again